Welcome to the Polaris Connection, the podcast that lights the way for families of autistic and neurodivergent children. I am your host, Brad Broyles, and each week we will sit down with industry experts, therapists, teachers, and more to bring you the most current insight, support, and hope. Whether you're navigating a new diagnosis or just need a reminder that you are not alone, this is your place to learn, grow, and connect. We are dedicated in connecting neurodivergent paths with purpose. Let's take this journey together, one conversation at a time. Today on our podcast, I'm thrilled to welcome an incredible educator, advocate, and leader, Heidi Lee. Thank you for being with us, Heidi. She was born in Warren, Pennsylvania. Heidi brings over 28 years of experience in education, holding a bachelor's degree in elementary and special education and a master's degree in educational leadership. She also holds a national board teacher's education in exceptional needs. That's a certificate, right, Heidi? Is that?
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard that's a very high standard to get. So congratulations on that accomplishment. She's not only serves as a teacher for our students at Polaris Academy, which basically focuses from 6th grade to 12th grade with her expertise, but also holds key leadership roles. You've also served as an academic coach, an assistant principal, and a director in career and technical education. Not only does Heidi have an exceptional background, but she's a mom of 4. 2 of whom are on the autism spectrum. Heidi knows firsthand the challenges and triumphs of navigating the education systems, both as an educator and as a parent. And that's why we're so excited to have you today. Heidi, we can probably talk forever about your passion, and that's why we're here today. Everybody, we are so excited to have Heidi Lee with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So let's kind of start off, Heidi. How did you get into your career path? How did you get involved in special needs?
I was talking to some coworkers about this earlier. When I was born in a really small town in Pennsylvania, and in the early 70s, that's where our state mental hospital was. We had a lot of group homes in our community, and we played with people with different abilities every day growing up. So I've had experiences with adults and kids since I was a small child that were differently abled.
Wow. Now, Warren, Pennsylvania, population, what is it?
Probably about 2,000,
2,000?
3,000, pretty small.
One or two stoplights?
Yeah, 1 or 2.
Well, that's neat. So you're saying because of where you grew up, this kind of a close-knit community, you were able to open up and work with special needs kids as a child. Any story that came up that jumps out at you?
Yeah, there's a couple. We, in the group home in our neighborhood, it was adults. Typically at the state hospital at that time was adults. And one of the men that I will always remember used to ride his bike around the neighborhood, and he would always want to play cops and robbers with us. And so we would play cops and robbers with him all day long. And then there was another gentleman that lived in that home as well that always walked to school with us.
Okay.
He would walk with us to school, and then he would turn around and walk back to the group home. At that time in the early 70s, there was no fear. There was no, it was what we did in our town. There was no, it wouldn't happen today. But
No,
at that
no.
time, it was an amazing experience for us as kids.
Wow. And well, what a great, now how did that, with your background in Warren, Pennsylvania, tell us about the path of how did you get from Warren, Pennsylvania to Mesa, Arizona, running a prestigious autistic school?
So I knew that I wanted to be a teacher from the time I was in third grade. And I have a twin sister, and she and I went to college in Ohio. I didn't do so well my first year, so they asked me politely not to come back. So I moved to Arizona where my mom was, and I started going to NAU and got my degree in elementary and special education. And at that time, I dreamed of having a third grade classroom full of students with Down syndrome. But no
Wow.
one ever tells you in college that that doesn't actually happen. So my
Mhm.
first teaching experience was junior high, cross categorical resource setting in Maricopa.
Wow. Wow. But again, kind of going back to the why special education? It sounds like you had a really neat, interesting, experience growing up. It seems like something of a passion, but what is the why? Why do you want to be in special education?
I am fascinated by kids who are different, people who are different. I'm fascinated by trying to figure out what's going to work for them in a school setting and how we can make their educational experience as rich as possible.
Okay. Any examples you can give our listeners of what you've done in the past that kind of made that connection?
When I was teaching in Maricopa, we started an inclusion program there. They had only pull-out services at the time. This was in the late 90s, so inclusion was just beginning at that time. So, really providing services for teachers and kids in the regular classroom was super powerful
Wow.
instead of having kids always pulled out into a resource room.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that sounds like some really nice additional services that you can give to those kids. How long were you with Maricopa?
I was with Maricopa 23, 24 years.
Wow. And when did you start those initiatives?
In the late 90s. So I started teaching in 96, and I think it was around 98 or 99 that we started the inclusion and bringing more supports to staff and students in the regular classroom.
Wow, wow. Well, and that's one thing I like about Heidi. Like you've really had a stellar career, but really from the leadership position. And it sounds like that you tell us a little bit about this National Board Teachers Education and Exceptional Needs. What does that do? Why is that important? And what made you want to get the certificate?
The National Board Certification it's the highest teaching standard in the country. It's a very rigorous process. It can take up to 3 years to attain certification. You're really, and people will compare it to a master's degree. Should I get a master's degree or a national board certification? The big thing for the national board certification is that you're examining your own teaching practice with your own kids in your classroom. So you're really digging into your practice, your beliefs, your systems, and proving to the national board based on a set of standards that you do meet those standards and are an exceptional educator.
So it sounds pretty rigorous. Like they really look over your curriculum, what you bring, how you teach it, what you teach on a
Yep.
national stage. Wow.
Yeah, you have
Do you
to
have to do you present it or how does that work?
So you have to write. There's several different parts, but you have to write based on their prompts and criteria. You have to videotape yourself teaching, and then you have to analyze that video and talk about all the things and how those meet the standards. Or if you didn't meet the standard, talk about why and what happened. So yeah, it takes a whole year. It's a long process. It's a lot of work, but worthwhile work. It changes your practice forever.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you like to be tortured. That is a lot of hard work. And so not only do you have a master's degree in educational leadership, you also hold a certificate from the National Board of Teacher Education. That's incredible. Wow, that's amazing. Well, so if we can shift our focus just a little bit, Heidi, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your background. So not only are you passionate about special needs, but from what I understand, you're a mother of two autistic children.
Yep, I have a 22-year-old son, 23, I'm sorry, who was diagnosed with Asperger's at the time. He is on the spectrum. He's very, very intelligent. He was selectively mute for a year at junior high school. He would speak at home and to his friends and family, but at school he had very, very little communication. He ended up dropping out of high school, did get his GED, and now works full time, has his own apartment, is doing great. But autism or Asperger's or whatever you want to call it, it doesn't go away. There are still struggles, and the biggest thing for us is how do we support him in negotiating the world in which he lives. My other son is entering sixth grade this year here at Polaris. He was diagnosed in kindergarten and has had services since then. Last year was his first year at Polaris. It was his first year. I get emotional. It was his first time he got invited to a friend's birthday party who was not a family friend.
Wow.
He has group chats now. He has friends that he goes to visit. He's had sleepovers. Having a community for him that supports who he is and honors the special little human that he is has been the biggest blessing for us and our family.
You know, Heidi, when you just shared that, I can kind of feel that as well, the emotions. Why, your sixth grader, his name is Jaeger. Are we
Yep.
okay? Can we say
Yep.
that?
Yep.
So Jaeger, why, invited to a birthday party, group chat, why is that so important?
Um, in in public school, he was the weird kid. He would self-identify as the weird kid. He had acquaintances, is what he calls them, at public school. He did not have true friends. He would be accepted one day and not the other. Anytime he had a behavior or acted different, he would be then he would be ignored or not considered part of the class or the group. So he had a lot of anxiety and a lot of social struggles because kids didn't understand him. They didn't struggle with the same things that he did. So it was really difficult for them to empathize with what he was experiencing. So he didn't have those true friendships. Where at Polaris, it's a whole school of kids like him.
Oh, wow.
Everybody has their own little special things, and the kids learn to understand, tolerate, support, help each other, and it's been super powerful.
Wow, that's amazing. So the one thing that I liked is that connectivity. We talk about connecting parents to resources, but then also kids to kids. That face similar struggles or might be just a little bit different. And with an autistic school, that can really help out. What were some lessons that you learned from the first? Now if you have four children, so and I appreciate you letting this get a little bit personal here, but from a mom, you had a one child with Asperger's, and then you had another one, Jaeger, that was autistic. Was there some lessons learned that from the 22-year-old that kind of helped you prepare for Jaeger that you were able to identify that you wouldn't mind sharing?
Yes, absolutely. I did a lot of with my older son fighting the system and fighting him, not physically fighting him, but
What do you mean by this system? Like tell us more about that.
the school system. So it wasn't fighting so much as struggles in getting them to understand my child and how he learned. As a special educator, my assumption was that other people would understand the same, and that's not true. And as a parent and an educator, it was very difficult for me to balance the two while trying to go through school with him.
Yes, that had to be struggling, like with, hey, I know special education and I'm seeing what you do. And as an educator, that's not correct. Is that kind of the standpoint? Then as a mother, there was additional struggles. Did you have
There, yeah, there were some years and some teachers who were amazing. Like, for example, my son in kindergarten, he sat under the table for the first month of school. He wouldn't sit at a chair at the table, he sat underneath. And so his teacher was like, it's fine. He's listening, he's learning, no problem. But then there were other teachers who really struggled to understand how he learned. And for example, in elementary school, they do spelling tests. So they'll give you the list at the beginning of the week and give you a pre-test. Well, my son would spell them all correctly at the beginning of the week, but then still have to do all of the assignments throughout the week and take the test again at the end of the week. And he would refuse to do it and get in trouble because he's like, Mom, I already know how to spell them all. So those kinds of things, right? Like it's really difficult to balance that being a mom and an educator.
Well, what do you do? So what are some advice that, or lessons learned that, let's say I'm a parent and I'm the same way. Like I know how my kid is. I know how he or she reacts. They are special needs and I'm seeing that there's some frustration with the education. Maybe the teacher doesn't get it. So do I, as a parent, do I just jump in there and just say, hey, teacher, you're doing it wrong? Or do I go to the principal? Or what would you tell a parent in that similar situation?
So some of the lessons I learned was I came on pretty strong with my older son and said, this isn't, this is what we need to do. You're not doing it right. And I think that now with Jaeger, I have matured. I was a lot older when I had him, but at the same time, it's about I needed to listen to what the educator, what the teacher was saying, what they were feeling, how they were engaging with my son, and then provide them the supports and the resources and that, well, that's not going to work from experience. Here's some other things could you try, rather than coming on so strong.
Gotcha. Well, I think a lot of parents with autistic or even special needs children might feel that same way. Um, and any advice you have for them and with that similar struggle?
I think the biggest thing is to keep an open mind. Educators want to support your child. They want to do the very best for them. Keeping an open mind and listening to how they're interacting and engaging with your child, and try to provide additional options or supports. The same thing isn't going to work for everyone the same way every day. So providing ideas and options, but not coming on so strong until those things aren't heard of. There comes a point where, if things don't change, then you have to advocate for your child and come on stronger.
Right.
But in the beginning, I think listening, observing, I encourage parents to go to the classroom and observe your child in action, and the teacher. So then you can help provide those what works for me, ideas, things like that.
Well, and I think sometimes parents might feel just, am I a bad parent or am I an advocate bringing concerns to teachers? So if I have a concern, when do I need to advocate or when do I need to trust the process or trust the teacher? Any thoughts on that?
Um, I, as a parent and an educator, I want that communication right away. If
Okay.
you're not feeling as a parent like something is going right, or it's confusing or it's frustrating, I would reach out right away.
So really raise your hand, stress, share your concerns as soon as possible. Is there a point where you're like, hey, I might be bugging the teacher so much with my concerns, or is it like, no, keep advocating?
I think that it's important to share that you want to be a partner. We want to do this
Okay.
together. Teachers are inundated constantly. They have many kids. They have a lot going on. But if you don't reach out and try to be a partner in that process, that's it's not going to go anywhere. I wouldn't email 17 times a day. I would process. I would not email right as I'm feeling it. I would think about it, process it, draft an email and say, "Hey, I want to partner with you. How can I help you better support my child?"
Okay. Well, and that's really nice because I think sometimes parents might feel like, where's the line? Where's much is too much? But you're saying, hey, I like how you said, let's partner. We're in partnership with the teacher to help our children, these young learners, grow and develop, especially our special needs friends that need maybe a little bit more, just kind of a different approach than
Yes.
the traditional way.
Yep.
Well, now tell us a little bit about how you've made a big career change here recently. If you don't mind, share us a little bit about your path is incredible, Heidi. I know it, but I just feel like everybody should hear about your or your path, sorry, of where you are right now. So if you wouldn't mind, give us a little bit of your background or your how you got, 3 years ago of where you were and kind of where you are today and what you see the future holding for you professionally. Professionally.
Yeah. So 4 years ago, I made the decision to leave Maricopa. I had done what I felt I could accomplish there, and then accepted a job in Queen Creek as the director of career and technical education. After 3 years there, I realized that I wasn't able to make the impact that I felt I needed to, and Polaris happened.
Well, and hold on. So when you say Queen Creek, that's how is that? That's a school district or just one high school?
The school, Queen Creek Unified School District, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
gotcha.
We had three high schools when I left.
Okay, perfect. I'm
Yep.
gonna keep going. I just
Okay.
that's a pretty important position.
It was a lot. It was a lot. It was incredible, and I learned so much. It was an incredible opportunity, but it was time for me to move to something else, and Polaris came up. I met with Brad and Aaron and Nathan, and they said, "Would you be willing to teach and go back to the classroom?" And I said, "Absolutely." I haven't been in the classroom in 10 to
Wait.
12 years, probably.
So hold on. So you went from like a director admin level back to the classroom. When was you said what, 10 years since the last time you were teaching?
Yep.
How did that feel?
It was terrifying. It was terrifying. I had to have a lot of conversations with myself about, could I still bring the game? Did I still know what I was doing as a teacher? It was incredible. It was terrifying every day. Was I doing the right thing? Was I doing it well enough? But it was the most magical year that I can remember. The community and the kids that I had the opportunity to be a part of their lives, it was incredible.
Wow.
Absolutely worth every bit of stress and worry, and it was incredible. I would do it again.
Right, but so again, going from an admin director position back to teaching, why the jump? Like, well, people don't do that, Heidi. You're like either you see something special or you're crazy a little bit.
I
What
would
what
say
is
both.
it?
A little bit of both.
But why?
Yeah, my son wasn't getting, his school was amazing in Queen Creek. His teachers, his administrator, it was absolutely incredible. But my son didn't have his needs met in the way I felt like as a parent they should be. So I was looking at other opportunities, and keep in mind, I had been in public education for 27 years, so I believe in public education. I struggled with my sons. I persevered with them. They graduated. My one got his GED, but at the same time, in today's time in Arizona, there are opportunities. I had an opportunity to look for different programming for my son. He wasn't having the social interactions and the social growth that he needed to. He wasn't having the academic growth because some of his behaviors were getting in the way. So I needed a place where he could have all of the supports. So when Polaris came to me, it was a great opportunity for him. And because of that, I was willing to go back to the classroom and teach. And I want to be a leader. I want to lead this campus. I want to lead future campuses. I want to be a part of Polaris. But for me, I needed to prove to myself and the team here that I could do it. Mm-hmm. So many times administrators are out of the classroom for so long that they don't have the closeness or the experience of what the teachers are feeling every day. And I really wanted to have that credibility and that opportunity to go back and do it myself.
Wow. Well, so from what I see is that Polaris came to you kind of in two parts. One, you looked at it as a mother for your son, but it also looks like you as an educator and a challenge. Kind of like getting back in the ring, I've already been a heavyweight champion before, now it's time to do it again type thing. What was it, if we can kind of dissect that a little bit further, I think our audience would love to hear, what about Polaris Academy that you saw that was good for Jaeger? And then if you can say, what from Polaris Academy made it a good choice as an educator for your professional career?
Okay. So starting with Jaeger, the year prior, we had experienced some behaviors with Jaeger and searched out ABA therapy. So he attended a clinic and went through ABA therapy after school, 3 to 4 days a week for probably 8 months. So after school, every day we were traveling to therapy. He would spend an hour and a half at therapy and then come home, have to eat, do homework, get ready for bed, all of those things. One of the brilliant parts of Polaris is that service is provided within the school day. We have registered behavior therapists that are providing ABA services to kids throughout the day. So as a parent, I don't have to take my son to outside services and extend his day any longer.
Wow. So one of it definitely was more of a convenient all-in-one type of a system for your lifestyle, for you.
Yeah.
And Jaeger. How much time did that buy back to your family?
3 hours a day.
That's huge for the parents that don't have a lot of time in the first place. Wow.
Yep. The other part that was so important for me was that the class size was 15. So there were 3 adults to 15 kids. And in public school, my son was in a class of 25, 28, 30 kids with a teacher. He received pull-out services, so he got support in a resource room. But in the regular classroom, it was that teacher with 25, 28, 30 kids.
Holy cow. How does a teacher do that? How does a teacher work with so many kids at 25 kids, all different levels?
It's 28 to 1, and the teacher picks where they can teach. They make accommodations as best they can, but my son couldn't get the attention that he needed, so he fell behind academically. And that's no one's fault. It's not the teacher's fault. She was incredible, but my son couldn't keep up. He didn't have he couldn't sustain attention that long. He didn't have the perseverance. So, it wasn't great for him.
Right. And one thing I've learned about educators, these teachers have such a passion of helping these kids, these young learners. Like you said, it's not the teacher's fault, but maybe it was more of the environment. Not that the public school district is wrong. It is what it is, and they just do the very best they can. And unfortunately, they just don't have the resources in a broad respect for all kids, and it makes it challenging. So my hat, my hat's off to all teachers. They're incredible people. How they do it, I don't know, but they are incredible people.
I just one note. I believe that public school systems have the opportunity to do things differently. They choose not to. I think a lot of
What? How
times
come?
we take we public school systems take the path less traveled, and then kids get left behind. Kids get left out. So I would love to see public school systems make changes to support the kids, but they have their own rationale and reasons for doing the things that they do.
Right.
But I will always stand by they could do things differently.
Well, and that might be a conversation for another time. That's really, um, that's important to talk about. But I want to kind of go back to Jaeger. So Jaeger was in public school. He did three to 4 hours a day per week for ABA services. But then Polaris, I assume are just normal school day hours. Did you see, as a mother, if I can ask this from a mother, did you see any kind of reduce behavior, or did he lose out because he was more of a blended therapy with academic and behavior and not getting the traditional ABA hours at post school? Did you see any kind of regress of behavior or academics in that type of model, or what was your experience?
I didn't, and Jaeger made growth going to a clinic. The struggle with a clinic is that it's very isolated. The generalization of what he was using at the clinic and able to do there back to home and to school was difficult. One of the beauties of Polaris is when we're teaching behavior, new skills for kids to reduce maladaptive behaviors, it's generalized right away. It's
Okay.
all in the classroom happening. So it's not like it's happening in a therapy setting, and then we have to figure out how do we make it happen in a school setting or at home.
Okay.
At the very beginning of the year, Jaeger is very attached to me. I am his safe person. I am the one that gets most of the behaviors all the time. So that was difficult for he and I at the beginning of the year as I was teaching in the classroom next to where he was. So one of the very first things they worked on with him was independence and that he did not need his mom throughout the day. So we worked through that, and the rest of the year was great. So for him, it's and a lot of kids like him. It's that generalization. Here's the behavior. Here's the skill. Let's figure out how do we use it in this setting and in others.
Okay. So Jaeger being attached to you as a behavior, you saw that behavior change through Polaris. But wouldn't that behavior also change if you just did a normal 3 hours ABA clinic?
It has the potential to change. The problem is that the generalization is the hard part. So how do I take this skill that I've learned in a clinic and actually have it happen at home or at school or in a store or social setting? So I think so much of the benefit of what we can provide here is that generalization's built in.
Oh, wow.
It happens naturally rather than in isolation.
Yeah.
Typically at the clinic it was one-on-one and there were a few other kids in the center, so he did have some interaction with other kids, but it wasn't necessarily like in a school setting or in a public setting.
So again, just going back to the normal environment, here's a general environment that you can learn from that actually seems like a better result behaviorally in your experience
Yes.
in this type of a program. Clinics are good, but it just wasn't able to give that same result that you saw from your experience. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think clinics are amazing, and I think the opportunity for kids to begin that process of that behavior therapy in a clinic is great. But the generalization to me as a mom and an educator is huge. If my son can do this skill in an isolated location, that doesn't support him in the social world.
Okay. Well, now let's talk about more as a leader. So you're greatly involved with Polaris. It sounds like as a mom, it's worked out for your kid. But talk about more of the leadership skills. Like what do you do for Polaris? What's your vision? Why Polaris? And and I know there's a lot of parents that talk about, we talk about a behavior, we talk about ABA therapy, BCBAs, but we're kind of shifting the gear a little bit to more of the academic side. Tell us more about that and how does that work with Polaris?
So, one of the beauties of being a private school is that we have the ability to have a lot more flexibility than the public school system does. We're allowed to create our curriculum. We still use the Arizona state standards. We abide by, the criteria for graduation and all of those things within the state. The the curriculum and the rigor that we're providing for kids would rival a public education system. How we're providing that is the difference.
Okay.
And
Tell me more about that. What do you mean, like, how do you provide that?
so from speaking from me personally, last year we did a lot of student investigation on topics. We did a big unit on Vietnam and the Korean War. So we did a lot of investigation. We did a lot of computer learning, all different kinds of things to support kids in learning the content. We didn't have a test, like a 50-question multiple choice test. We didn't do that. They had a different way of showing that they had mastered the content. So they would produce a product, a slideshow or a one-pager, any variety of things that they felt that they could do. So it's just the way, what we're teaching is the same. The way that we're showing that our kids know that is different.
So how would that be compared to a public school? So if you were a public school teacher teaching Vietnam War, okay, here we're going to talk about the Korean and Vietnam War to our class. They have to do a presentation. How is that different from a public school setting to a private setting? And how do I know that it's the same quality of education that I should be getting, if not better or worse?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our teachers here at Polaris are certified teachers, just like in a public school setting. So they have the same background, the same expectations there. At a public school, you may be provided a textbook that you are to teach from. Typically, in a junior high or high school, teachers do a lot of lecturing, students do a lot of note taking, and it's kind of on the student to understand and then take a test. At Polaris, we don't have a textbook mandated to us, so we can use whatever resources we want in the world to teach the content, and then assessing students is based on the state standards. So whatever that standard says, that's what we're going to assess in whatever way we can understand that information. I had a couple of students who hated writing and it was really difficult and it would induce behaviors. So then we would talk, or we would find a different way for them to show what they know.
Okay, so you're still following the state standards, but it's more about the delivery to understand those state standards. So rather than in a textbook, let's read this, you're like, okay, here's the topic, my state standards A, B, and C. Let's talk about the topics so that we can then still follow and the state standard. Is that correct? So we're still using it, just a different, like you said, a different approach.
Yep.
So how do you approach that with autistic kids? Because, we say, if you met one autistic kid, you've met just one autistic kid. They're all different. So then how do you teach and educate you say you have 15 kids in a class. How do you do that with 15 kids?
It's a lot. It
That sounds like an understatement.
I guess the way that I look at it is the biggest strength that we have as teachers at Polaris is that we have 15 kids. I can pair and get to know every one of those kids very well. So we know what are their triggers, what are they into, how do we get through to them. We take a lot of time to learn about our specific kids. So in a specific unit, for example, I was introducing multi-step equations to my students. A lot of them don't have the math facts to be able to do that. So we introduced it by using manipulatives and calculators, and we allowed them the resources to be able to figure out, how do I solve multi-step equations. By the end of the school year, a kid who on a school test or a state test scores at a second grade level is able to solve multi-step equations using a calculator and resources, but that's not going to show on a state test because they need those accommodations and that support in order to do that.
But if you did a state test in a public school, would they still give those accommodations?
You get some accommodations. They call them universal accommodations. There are some things you're allowed to provide. Calculators is not one of them.
How come? How come they wouldn't make those accommodations? Is that a state requirement? Is that a school
It's
standard? Or?
from the state testing doesn't allow that.
Wow, wow,
Yeah.
but I guess I still use a calculator everything I do.
Yeah. And
So-
one of the greatest things last year was the kids were like, I can use a calculator? Like, it's allowed? Like, you're in eighth grade. At that time, if you don't have the automaticity with the math facts, you may not ever have it. You have a phone you carry around with you all the time. Let's use that resource.
Right.
Let's use it responsibly and figure out, how do I get what I need from the tools that I have available.
Correct. And mostly just in society, we use the tools that are given to us to really help us perform at our highest level. And okay, and that's, again, that might be a different conversation. How come the state don't allow that? Heidi, I feel like I could talk to you all day. Tell us your vision with Polaris. We didn't really talk about that. What is your role with Polaris Academy? And tell us how that evolved and what your, kind of what your vision is that you would like to carry out.
So this next year, I'll be working along with Aaron as the campus director for our Superstition Springs
We're,
campus.
we're talking about Mr. K.
Mr. K,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Mr. K,
Okay.
sorry. For our Superstition Springs campus, while I plan what our high school campus is going to look like, what our high school programming will look like. And one of the things that I'm super passionate about is helping kids find their path. What are they going to do next? How are we going to transition from high school to adulthood? For my older son, that was very difficult. And then for Jaeger, I foresee it being a season in our life as well. But really talking about, like, what's your goals for your child and what are your child's goals? A lot of parents want their kids to go to college. Is that something that is achievable, accessible, and something that your child is going to be successful at? Is a vocational program where we're going and what we're looking for, or is it straight to the workforce? So I think that really, for me, in developing the high school, it's providing all three of those options and whatever combination families are looking for in the middle. Also, it's just putting all of the things out there on the table, and letting families having those open, honest conversations. One of the hardest things for a mom and a parent is, I had this vision that my son was going to, go to MIT because he's a genius and he's going to be an engineer, or he was going to be in the Navy on a nuclear sub and doing all these amazing things. His goal in life was to be a hobo. He wanted to ride in train cars. Like, that's what he wanted to do. I don't know that he's ever done it, but I don't really want to know. But so negotiating that grieving process of, I have this belief for my child, but that's not anywhere near what they want for themselves. So really having those deep conversations and understanding of what's next, what
Wow.
can be achievable, and how do we get there.
Well, and it sounds like this is a big passion, not only helping children that's in your program, but this is personal,
Very.
right? I mean, yeah, this is a personal mission. Like you had to do that with your 22-year-old boy, and now you have Jaeger that's coming up the ranks. What gaps do you see that Polaris can fit or fix in that transition from high school to career? I know you're saying you're building up the high school program, but you also mentioned high school and their career. What gaps do you feel like that you can do better or that you're really targeting?
One of the things that I'm really wanting to figure out how we make happen is having that, like, I guess I would call it a coach for kids. Like, as
Okay.
they become that junior and senior, how do we, if college is their route, how do we help them enroll in dual enrollment courses in high school? And then our coach kind of goes along with them on this journey of how do you be successful in a college class? How do you get to the next step? How do I ask for help? How do I negotiate the counseling office or student aid or all those things in the college setting? Or, if I want to get a job or if I want to get a job, we have a coach that will help students have that transition to a job. We go with them. We help them with the application, the interview, all of those support systems along the way, to really provide that. Typically at a high school, you graduate, bye bye, you're on your own. Your parents are like, if your
You can't come back if you don't want to. Like
parents,
we will not let you come back. You're
yeah,
done.
you can't go back and get support or services from a high school. Your parents then that's all you have. And if your parents don't have the resources or know what to do, then it's very, very difficult. So I really want for us to help in that middleman transition from high school to adulthood.
Well, in Polaris, the way I understand it, Polaris Academy does not have a high school right now. Is that
We
correct?
we don't have a standalone high school building. We do
Okay,
have some students in ninth and 10th grade this year, so they will be earning credit towards high school graduation.
gotcha. So once high school's being built, what's going to be new about the high school experience that they're not having right now?
They'll have, right now, they have one main teacher, so we kind of have a self-contained program. This year, we're starting to switch a little bit, but they'll have different teachers. They'll have opportunities for electives, for CTE courses where, if we have a lot of kids that are interested in engineering and digital media. So being able to offer some digital media courses so they can get their feet wet and see, is this something that I really want to invest in for my future? So we'll have a lot more academic offerings, dual enrollment. We'll also have a lot more elective offerings and that transition to adulthood
Wow, and when is this all going to start?
next year.
Wow, so 2026. Wow, so that's really really exciting stuff. So we'll probably touch base with you again when we get closer to that. We'd love to learn more about those programs and see what's going to be. I'm sure we'll have some parents give out some questions and we'll have some more information. So that's a really really exciting. Heidi, I could probably talk to you all day. I really appreciate your time, wealth of information. As we wrap up, can you give like 3 tips in navigating kind of high school age? So those parents out there, more with the high school autism, I guess, bandwidth, is there some 3 tips that you can recommend our parents, that you would give our parents in navigating their autistic kids during their high school experience?
Sure. The first one is teach your child to advocate for themselves. You're not going to be able to do it for them when they're an adult. So teach them how to advocate for the things that they need on their own. The second thing is to have really open, honest conversations about what life looks like for them after high school. Do they have aspirations of going to college? Do they want to go to a vocational school? What do they want to do? And really dig into, is that reasonable? Here's some of the things you're going to have to be able to know and do to be able to do that. Is that something you're willing to persevere through? Having open, honest conversations with your kids. And the other thing is, be open-minded. If they say they want to go to a vo-tech school or just get a job, support them in that journey. Continue to push them to be the greatest thing that they can be, but be open-minded and accepting and flexible of what your kid wants.
Wow. And that sounds like some fantastic advice for autistic kiddos, for special needs, or just general kids. And, be open, teach them to advocate for themselves, be flexible. Wow. So, well, Heidi, I appreciate all your advice. We'd love to have you come back later on. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you for being with us today, and we look forward to all those who are listening. We'll drop your contact information, if that's okay, on
Sure.
our podcast. So if people have questions, they can reach out to you. So we'll put your email address and contact information. Thank you so much, Heidi, for being here. Everybody, thank you for making us part of your day, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.